alcohol is just a symptom of the deeper problem. It has prices to pay for everything. Consciously chose drug and alcohol and that lifestyle over what had been my dream my whole life. Once I put alcohol in my body, now all I can do is think about more alcohol. That's the obsession and the compulsion.
And at this point, like, did you have any plans for long-term sobriety, or were you kind of like, this is what it is, whatever?
I was absolutely self-absorbed with how I was feeling at any given moment.
Labeled a slow learner.
I always felt a little bit
always felt
different.
like there was something wrong with me.
Embarrassed. Wasn't ready to see myself.
I can't go any
Don't
lower.
sell yourself short.
Uncovering all those feelings. Everything was lifted at that moment.
This really wasn't about not drinking.
Welcome to Crosstalk. This is Irene. I'm coming to you from Florida, and I'm here with my friend Shai. Thank you for coming, Shai.
Thanks for having me.
Shai and I do not know each other well, so I'm really excited to get to know Shai and hear all about his journey in recovery. And together we will find out more about him. So, Shai, welcome to Crosstalk.
Thanks for having me.
And what we're going to do is kind of go through your life story.
Sounds good.
So just a little bit briefly about, how you grew up, what did that look like, and then what happened? Like, when was the first time that you picked up, whether it's alcohol or drugs, and how did it go down? Like, what happened?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town called Hanover, Pennsylvania. My mom was a Israeli immigrant, and so was my biological father. They split when I was very young. She remarried, and so to a Gentile, a Pennsylvania Dutch man who raised me, and so. I grew up with a life where they wanted to give us the best of both worlds. So, for example, on Saturday, we would go to synagogue, we would do Saturday school, we'd learn Hebrew, read the Torah, all that stuff. And then Sunday, we'd go to church, go to Sunday school, and learn about how we were going to hell for everything we learned on Saturday. I always felt like I was different in some way, like something was wrong. And I remember feeling this from a very young age, like something was just off. And I'm talking like as early as like 5 or 6 years old. I remember, just staring up at the ceiling at night and I couldn't sleep. And I remember earlier my mom asked me, why can't you sleep? I'm like, there's noise in my head, and it was just a lot of yelling back and forth and a lot of, just discombobulation up there. And I couldn't figure out why. It just, like, I didn't want to be around, I remember one of the earliest reports that I did, I had to do a persuasive speech, and I chose why I thought euthanasia should be legal.
Oh my God, I think I did something about that too.
Because like on some level, I felt like I don't want to be here. And really, it wasn't even that I don't want to be here. It's just I want to stop feeling the way I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And so I became very obsessed with how I felt. Like I was constantly thinking about, okay, I'm very aware of every tummy ache, of every small, passing headache, of every itch, of every twitch. It all set off like this obsession with self.
Yeah.
And, we talk about selfishness in sobriety and being the root of all our troubles. My experience with that isn't like a selfishness of that's my toy, you can't play with it. I was very generous. I was very giving. I was, I was had empathy. I had compassion, but I was absolutely self-absorbed with how I was feeling at any given moment.
Right.
I was looking for ways to get out of it. And so I was very drawn to taboos when I was a kid. When we finally got the internet, like the internet came around when I was about 13. And I started researching legal ways to get high. Like I was looking for things that, might be in my backyard that I could smoke or eat or whatever. And And I know I like gradually I messed around with some different things that grew wild in Pennsylvania. I had some bad stomach aches. I had some bad headaches, and eventually it was like, okay, I explored enough things to know that wasn't really where it was at.
Right. Not the kind of mushrooms you wanted to be doing.
Right, I could never even find those mushrooms when I was a kid.
I don't think it's that easy.
I was looking for them. And I know, like, we talk about, like, the first time. I can't remember exactly what the first time was, but I remember I was sneaking liquor from the liquor cabinet, and I was, pulling Zimas out of the fridge. And, like, I would drink one, and then I went to the backyard. There was, we lived in a country house in the hill, and there was this back area where we didn't mow, so the grass was real tall, and I would just go chuck my bottles out there, and this went on, like, I don't know how many years I did that, and how many times I snuck, a Yingling or a Zima or whatever.
Right.
But I know, like, later on when I was an adult, my dad hired somebody to get a big mower and mow that whole thing.
Oh, no.
They've been having parties back there, so actually
That's so funny.
That's years of me.
So 13, you would say, is when you had your first drink?
Yeah, somewhere in that that ballpark.
And was drinking, accepted in your household, being, like in my household, I'm Greek, so having a sip of wine or, they were a little bit more understanding, I guess, than like the traditional American households.
Yeah. I would say my parents drank regularly, but within what you can consider reason.
Right.
I think they were very much, have a glass of wine with dinner, have cocktails on the weekends with friends. Like, I remember they had mimosas some mornings, if they were doing a brunch. So, I mean, they drank. I don't really remember in my childhood too often seeing them drunk or anything, like
excessive.
Yeah, where I thought it was,
right.
Out of control. They eventually split, and when this happened, it was a rough divorce. I won't go into the details on that, but I know my dad was having a party at his place, and he bought a pool table, and he had all the guys over, and some of them started sneaking me shots of something called tarantula.
What's
Some
that?
bluish, clearish liquor. That's all I remember.
Okay.
And there was Jose Cuervo. I was getting snuck shots of that. And that was the first time I remember really being drunk, as I'm hanging out with all these guys that are twice my age or more, and I'm playing pool, and I felt like a sense of belonging. I felt like, felt good. Obviously, I felt inebriated. But I felt like I had fixed something in me that had been broken forever, Right. And I just remember thinking, like, I always want to feel like this. I always want to do this, And I remember at that time, I was commuting to school. I was actually going to performance arts school at the time in Baltimore. So it was about an hour commute. I was 16, and I was working part-time job, and I had a real heavy load on my plate for a 16-year-old. And I'm laying in bed, and the ceiling's spinning, and my dad, he comes out, and he brings a trash can, and he says, well, I said, Dad, the ceiling's spinning. He said, yeah, well, you're pretty drunk. I'm going to put a trash can here. If you have to throw up, use it. But listen, I expect you to be up in the morning and take care of your responsibilities. You better be at work. You better get your this done and that done and whatever. And I think what his goal was, like, he was going to give me a real bad hangover, teach me what it was like to have to get up and try and fight through that, and I would never want to do it again.
Wow.
But what happened was I woke up feeling energized the next morning. It was not the typical reaction of someone getting drunk for their first time, I don't think. But looking back in hindsight, I feel like I just figured out the secret to life. So I'm like, I was pumped. And there was no problem with missing any of my responsibilities. Everything got taken care of. And I just remember that as the moment where where it clicked that alcohol had this magic on me.
Yeah.
And that I always wanted to feel that way.
Incredible outcome. So then where'd it go from there?
Yeah. I was definitely a troubled kid in school and all that stuff. So, I was always getting.
And at this point, you're in college, or you're still
No,
performing arts school?
I'm still in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in high school. And the irony about it is, I was like a daily student in the principal's office. But after I started drinking and eventually like smoking weed and doing different things like that, my disciplinary reports actually started to slow down. Wow. So,
That's very unusual.
Yeah. Well, I think because I had found a way to calm myself. I'd always been overly energetic, just popping out of my seat, like couldn't keep my hands to myself, just couldn't sit still. And now I felt like, I'm me, like I'm good,
Yeah.
And so I just kept chasing that effect. My dad from the States had called me at one point while I was there, and he said, well, it's time to pay the tuition for, your performing arts school. I figure, this is a yes, but I just wanted to check before I sent the check, you still want to do this. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it had been my dream my whole life to be an actor, right? That's all, ever since I was young and I could see movies, I wanted to do that, right? I wanted to be an actor. And this school graduates actors. These are people that end up working. They make a living off of this craft. And this was a very definite pathway to success, this school. And my dad's asking me, do you want to do it again? And I'm making this calculation in my head. I'm like, I cannot continue to live the way I want and do this school at the same time. These two are incompatible, right? And so I said, no, I'm not going to go back.
And so that would mean that you'd be entering into like senior year somewhere else?
Yeah, it would have been my senior year at the Baltimore Actors Theater.
Okay.
Typically their graduates do really well,
Wow.
So
you kind of chose like drugs and alcohol.
I literally chose drugs, like consciously chose drug and alcohol and that lifestyle over what had been up to that point my dream my whole life.
Wow.
Which didn't even really register until, a decade or more later. I'm like, I really did that. Wow. And it wasn't even a question. It was like a quick calculation. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Wow.
And so I went back to public school and started to live the way I wanted to live, uninhibited. Within about a year, I had spiraled out of control enough to the point where, I had been found in a car where I was the passenger. The driver had gotten out and ran as we got pulled over. and I'm like waking up, still, I think I'm still, I'm 18 at this point, but I'm not old enough to be drinking. So there's alcohol, bottle containers, there's other stuff, paraphernalia in the car.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like coming to as this officer comes up. I'm weighing like 90 pounds at this point, because at this point, there's a lot of other things involved other than alcohol. I'm crushing up Adderalls and snorting those like.
And what year was this, if you don't mind me aging you a bit, I guess?
Oh yeah, this is 2002, 2003, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, if I can get a hold of coke, if I can do crack, if I can do,
wow. Were you already doing crack and everything?
Literally whatever I could get my hands on.
Okay.
Hanover's kind of a small town, and you got what you could kind of
Got it.
thing.
So you went from like weed and drinking,
alcohol, to just
full on opiates or uppers mostly.
I didn't do opiates at that point because I just didn't know where to get them.
Okay.
But everything else, it was like my existence to just check out, right? Like that was my goal.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to check out, and that's it. That's what I exist to do right now. It's like,
I can relate. I did that for years.
Right?
Yep.
And so what I want to feel is nothing at this point. Actually, the way I had been found, I forgot I had actually taken a handful of pills, and I drank like a bunch of, I think I drank vodka or rum that night. I can't remember, but it was enough to like what I thought do the job. So when I woke up, I remember actually being kind of pissed off about it.
Right. Oh,
Like, how am I here?
got it.
You know?
Yeah.
And that wasn't really my first or last time trying to, like half-assedly check out permanently,
Yeah.
I never, I guess the thing is like, I could never figure out how to commit suicide because there was no way to do it without being present.
Yeah.
I was just, if I could figure out a way to commit suicide without actually being there, that would be the trick.
Like taking an overdose of pills,
So, anyway, I'm in this car and we're pulled over, and this guy gets out and runs and leaves me with all the bullshit. And I remember being really pissed off. So the officer came up and asked what that guy's name was. And I completely, I was so mad at him. Like, yeah, his name is blah, 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 blah. He lives at blah, blah, blah. Here's his phone number. Like, I was like, fuck that guy. Why would he do that?
Totally.
And he could see that I was in rough shape. And he said, I'm not going to take you to jail. I'm like, you can either go home or you can go somewhere where you can get some help. Wow. And I just in that moment, I decided to go somewhere where I could get some help. And that led me to a psych unit, where I dried out, and then went to a rehab in Shippensburg. And then I was dumped out into the recovery industry in York, Pennsylvania.
And at this point, like, did you have any plans for long-term sobriety, or were you kind of like, this is what it is, whatever?
I was just kind of floating.
Yeah.
I was just letting the universe kind of do what it did. And I went kind of where I was told from that point.
Okay. And this is how old?
I was 18 at this point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, at that time, and I think it's still this way, York, Pennsylvania is this giant recovery hub. Ended up going there, getting in the mix with, I did a little NA, I did a little AA, I did tried all these different things out, got a little bit sober, relapsed, got a little bit sober, relapsed,
I mean, you're young at that time. I mean, I didn't get sober until I was 34, and I don't know if I know a lot of people who got sober at 18 and 19 and 20, but I don't know if I would have been able to. I mean, that's.
Well, I did end up putting together about 3 years.
Oh, that's pretty good.
In that time, I learned a lot that would serve me better later, right? Where I kind of learned the information, I would repeat it, I would spout it, but it really wasn't in me at that point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, the principle of selfishness, like, I would say I was selfish and self-centered, but not really like understand what that meant. You know what I mean? Or really even see that in myself. I just kind of agreed to it because that was the proposition that you got to the next step through,
Yeah.
is to just admit that was there. But I never really truly internally like understood what that meant. Like, and I don't think I was done, and as time went along, I remember somebody offered me a puff of a joint. I took it, and then the next thing I knew, I was drinking, and then the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital for alcohol poisoning, and then I was, like down this whole journey. So like the first couple of months, it looked like, okay, I'm going to spiral out of control on this relapse, but after a while, it started to stabilize, and then actually had quite a few years of success drinking, getting high. I stopped doing the hard drugs. I thought, okay, well, as long as I stay away from those, if I just drink a little, get high, I'll be all right. And for about, I don't know, I'd say like 5-10 years, pretty much, I built a business. I had some success. I put my band together. We, accomplished a lot of goals that I had for myself musically. I had I got married, you know what I mean? Things were looking up.
And did you kind of reconnect with your family at all in this time?
Yeah. The family life was improving. Yeah, that was.
You were behaving.
Yeah, I was mostly behaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I didn't realize was this whole time, while on paper I'm a good boy, my selfishness and my obsession with how I feel and what everybody else needs to do and to accommodate me and to make me feel better, like that was playing hell on my relationship at home with my wife,
Yeah.
and I can see now looking back on it, like, oh my God, I drove that woman crazy. Like she was an angel, you know what I mean? And I found a way to just abuse her emotionally and find a way to make somebody that loves you like not love you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she left, and that's when things really started to spiral out of control. So she left, and I was absolutely devastated. To the point where I went to the doctor and I said, listen, I cannot exist in the state that I'm in right now. You need to do something. And he gave me a prescription of Klonopin, which I started taking like every day.
So at this point, like, did you think like maybe going back to a program or, doing any of that would help?
No. I mean, I had considered like AA, because I know there was a big focus on helping others there, but then I'd have to be sober, and I didn't want to do that.
Of course. And with your ex, I'm assuming ex, maybe maybe we get back with her, who knows? But
no, that didn't have a happy. But happy for her that she got to leave.
Did she know anything that you were sober before?
Yeah, she knew all about that.
But she wasn't aware that, was she like, maybe if you stop doing these things, you won't act this way? Or was it not really looking like a problem?
Here's the thing, is the alcohol and the drugs weren't looking like a problem. And most of my life... So it was like
all the character defects.
Yeah, most of my life, they never did. Even when I first got sober the first time, my mom was like, you're not an alcoholic. I'm like, she would she would fight me over that. Like, you're not an alcoholic. You drink, blah, blah, blah. Because it didn't always end up in disaster. And sometimes I did have 2 or 3 drinks and then go home, and here's the thing, is the way I view this condition, you know what I mean? Which I'm gonna call alcoholism a disease of the spirit, is 2 parts. So there's the physical part, which is just that best described as an allergy, I think, where once I put alcohol in my body, now all I can do is think about more alcohol, and that's the obsession and the compulsion, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just obsess about it, and then the other part of it has nothing to do with the alcohol, right? The other part of it is just me being selfish. It's like this convergence of 2 really bad problems coming together to make this super problem,
I tell people all the time, like, oh, like, that's so alcoholic. And they'll be like, well, they don't even drink. I'm like, it's so hard to explain to someone who doesn't really know, but it's like, it's a behavior almost.
Yeah, and I'm kind of, I've toyed with the idea in my life of like, maybe alcoholism isn't the best way to describe, because really alcohol is just a symptom of the deeper problem.
Right, of course.
It just happens that, when I drink alcohol, something snaps in my brain where I just think about it. I just keep thinking about it. And whether I have that drink or I don't, I'm thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Because you think it's your solution, right?
It 100% is the solution.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the problem.
It has prices to pay for everything, right?
Yeah.
And even if you take, like, say, a medication for diabetes or a medication for whatever condition you have, there's always at least one side effect that comes with it.
Of course.
It's just my solution has like a million side effects and they all are just terrible, you know?
So then tell me, like, you are basically now given this prescription for Klonopin, which is going to solve all your problems.
It made it so that I could just tolerate my existence, because my whole life at that point is just one big panic attack. And so I started taking it, and I actually didn't really abuse it.
Because it treats anxiety, and it
Yeah.
treats probably a little bit maybe of what you were feeling.
Yeah. So, you know, the other thing I thought was, okay, well, I have my biological father, and I have a bunch of half brothers and sisters living in LA, and they had been chomping at the bit for a while, like, come move out here. And so finally I'm like, you know what? I'm going to move out there.
Yeah.
Because maybe my problems don't exist in California. And
That geographical change is
Right.
always like the solution.
you know, sure enough, same kind of problems. The same kind of conflicts followed me everywhere I went. And
Well, you brought yourself with you, right?
yeah. And there was just this growing frustration over time, you know, like I was so concerned about, you know, well, my family acts this way and they should act this way, or they're doing this and they should do that. And I got like, you know, like trying to play God, trying to be the actor running the whole show sort of thing. And I got very frustrated doing that for about, what was that, like 3-4 years in California. I ended up with this girlfriend. She was a crazy Turkish girl that just knew how to drive me crazy as much as possible. And we fought a lot, you know what I mean? And one night she had driven me to this point of just, you know, blind rage, you know, and I had started slamming doors and breaking stuff, and the police was called to the house, and, you know, I'm like, okay, all right, you know, I started realizing like, all right, nothing's working anymore. I'm just angry all the time, you know, and I felt like it was time to check out again, like permanently check out again. And so I ate a handful of the Klonopin and drank a bunch of the, you know, Tito's at this point, like just a bunch of Tito's, and woke up with this vague recollection of slashing a tire in the middle of the night. Oh my God, I slashed somebody's tire, right? So I woke up and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go outside and find the car, and then quietly just like slip an envelope with a couple $100 on, you know, just try to make this right quietly, you know. I walk outside that morning, and the entire block is changing their tires. In the middle of the night, you know, whatever reaction I'd had to you know,
That combo,
yeah. I had walked around the entire city block of Los Angeles and slashed car tires, 30 cars.
Whoa.
Yeah. And God, it was on the news. It was, you know, like.
But nobody knew it was you. Or were you on camera somewhere? Like
There was camera footage of it. And what had happened is because that night before there had been that issue with my fiance, and I had proven myself a very unstable human being, you know?
Yeah.
The police kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I just, you know, I didn't make any attempt to hide it.
Right.
I was, you know, like beside myself. I'm like, I can't believe I did something like that. you
Yeah.
know? And so I just admitted to everything, and kind of felt a relief doing it, because I'm like, okay, I kind of sensed like, all right, this is the end. This can end now, right? Whatever this was, I just had that feeling of like, okay, it's over. Followed by like, oh shit, I'm in jail, and they're not giving me my meds.
Right.
For the people watching, there's 2 drugs that you can die from withdrawal, and one is alcohol, and the other is benzodiazepine. And
Yeah.
so I'm kicking it cold for 3 days. Well, eventually, on the 3rd day, they did give me a pill. Like they finally got authorized to give me one of those pills. But I had been in essentially like suicide watch. So they had me. This was Twin Towers Correctional Facility, which is widely known as one of the worst jails, to end up in.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's, like feces on the walls, like inhumane living conditions. It really
Wow.
was.
And this is in LA?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I kind of, while I was in there, I went insane. I'm coming off of this stuff, and I'm just, I guess I still filled with rage. I'm like pounding on the jail cell. I'm screaming at the guards. I'm screaming myself hoarse, literally all night. And I was like in a state of psychosis. I don't know how to put it. Like, I just remember pounding my fist till the knuckles were bleeding, and just screaming until I was hoarse. And it changed as I was in the jail cell. They brought in this guy who was legit. I don't know if I want to call it schizophrenic, but he sees people and he talks to them, right? They put him in with me, and I'm screaming and carry on, and excuse me, and I'm acting crazy. And I just remember, like, he was as gentle as could be. Said, "Hey, do you mind quieting down for a little bit so that I could get some sleep?" I really, he said it even softer than that somehow. Wow. He was so gentle and so kind about it. And I felt like such shame in that moment. Like, I'm like, here's a guy that has legitimate, mental problems, and I'm in here acting like this. And I started to feel the weight of my selfishness. And it was the first time I went like to myself, well, maybe this isn't excessive, this punishment that I'm receiving. Like, maybe this is where I belong right now. Maybe I am unhinged, And I started having those thoughts. And they took me out to the courthouse, and I was in a cell. To actually go to my court hearing, whatever, to the judge, I didn't actually go into the courtroom. They took me down this hallway from the jail cell up to a window with bars where I could look into the courtroom, and the judge could kind of see me there. I was not even allowed in the courtroom, right? Mm-hmm. So this is how they viewed me. They viewed me as like a wild
dangerous
animal, like as someone dangerous. And I looked into the courtroom, and my father, my 4 brothers and sisters, everybody I worked with, everybody that I knew was in that audience, like there to support me. But I guess I should have felt thankful for that. But what I felt was a really deep, pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. That they call it in the big. I had never felt more low than that moment. I still have, to this day, never felt more low than that moment. And the judge had a long list of things for me to do to stay out of jail. I was looking at 7 years because the amount of damage I did amounted to 4 felonies and 12 misdemeanors and all that.
Oh, wow. Because it was multiple cars.
Yeah.
So it's like vandalism almost.
Yeah, it was because of the dollar amount. Yeah, the dollar amount pushes it from a misdemeanor to a felony, right? So like some cars, the damage was below 500 or whatever, so they considered that a misdemeanor, and when it was above, they considered it a felony or something. So, they were definitely trying to say, like, hey, you have 4 felonies now that you're facing. So, the judge offered I had to do community service. I had to obviously make financial restitution, and she wanted me to do a year inpatient treatment, which is
a year is a lot.
A year.
Yeah.
Dual diagnosis inpatient treatment, which they just don't offer out there, right? So, that was kind of a scare because it's like, okay, I have to figure out like how do
they even know you're diagnosed? I'm just saying,
don't.
like,
no.
They're just throwing things at the wall at this point.
They're like, this is what we want you to do. This is the deal we want, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, so now I have to figure out how to create a dual diagnosis program out of all these little programs. And so month of rehab here, stay here, this, that,
Interesting.
So
okay.
I'm bouncing around to these facilities, trying to make this work, so that I can complete the requirements set out. I ended up, getting right with all that.
Yeah. And this was from this experience. Is this now like you've been sober since then?
I've been sober since then. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's hug. Are you open to a hug?
Yeah.
Okay.